Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This occasion is not only of interest to us, it's something also that affects us directly. You know that workers and pensioners, they are in a symbiotic relationship, because a worker today is certainly a potential pensioner. And that's why we refer to our pensioners as senior citizens. Senior citizens, good day. Thank you. I convey to you the goodwill and message of support from the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress on this very important occasion, a sensitization program on pension fraud in Nigeria. This is certainly very commendable because we need to engage all issues that impede our development, and certainly pension fraud is one of it. As presented by the Director of Operation, in fact, the facts that have been presented is an eye-opener, which means we need to do more, we need to collaborate, we need to engage the issues. We are very passionate about pensioners' issue because NLC represents the issue of Nigerian Union of Pensioners. In fact, the Nigerian Union of Pensioners is an affiliate of the Nigerian Labour Congress, and that's why each time you see us discussing workers' issue, we also take side by side the issue of the pensioners. Salary and pension fraud in Nigeria have become a phenomenon that the more you see, the less you try to understand. I say so because of the fact that, in fact, they have created new lexicons. Ghost figure, ghost pensioner, and ghost worker. It's only in Nigeria that people create those type of phenomenon so that the real crime can be actually embedded so that people cannot see it. But I think we have unraveled all of these things. And therefore, I want to commit our support to the process of making sure that those issues are addressed. But importantly, I think we must also situate the issue where the problem lies. As we speak today, only 10 states are into the contributed pension scheme and are well funded. 2 days ago, we had an occasion to actually review also some of the social security cover, and the issue of pension was very central. Only 10 states. And therefore, it gives room to corruption, because whether we like it or not, the contributive pension scheme actually have reduced the quantum of corruption in the system, because you can now deal with 3 levels of issues. One, you have the pension fund administrator, you have the custodian, and then you have the regulator. The regulator makes sure that all key players are playing according to the rule. But in the all-defined benefit scheme, there is no such arrangement. And that's why corruption has been very monumental. And that's why you hear stories. Despite the issue of biometrics in many states about pensioners and workers' issue, you just hear, oh, we have seen X number of ghost workers. You should discuss the issue of ghost figure that is in somebody's pocket, not about the ghost worker, because the ghost worker is innocent. The figure goes to somebody's pocket. So I think that is why we need to support this idea. We need to look at issues that impede our development, not to say that, well, we can not fight all issues. We can fight all issues. And I think this is a wonderful initiative. We will be part of it, because I remember that December every year we used to celebrate the Pensioners' Day. So this will be one of the issues we put on the table, to insist that we must refine the system and that those corrupt people must be brought to book. And it doesn't require rocket science to be able to do that. We must also have credible data, because part of the problem of even the pensioner issue and the ghost figure, we don't have credible data. And people manipulate data just for their own benefit. So once again, I wish you a very successful deliberation. I want to support the initiative, and I want to assure you that NLC will always be in such initiative and support moves to be able to sanitize our system. Thank you very much.
All over the world is supposed to be a buffer that mitigates the post-work life challenges of retirees in both public and private sectors. By drawing from the pension pot, former employees are expected to sustain a decent and healthy life in retirement. This is the reason government and other employers of labor set up pension schemes to cater for the needs of the workers in the pace of their lives when they are no longer physically, mentally strong to handle the daily hassles involved in making a living. Nigeria for many years operated the defined benefit scheme until 2004, when the federal government of Nigeria came up with the pension industry reforms that heralded the contributory pension scheme, CPS. At the time, the new scheme was considered the antidote to fix all the problems and imperfection of the old order. 2 decades into operating the CPS, it is obvious that while we may have taken some steps forward, we are still very far from our destination. We cannot say exactly how much is lost to pension fraud in financial times, bearing in mind that most cases are unreported or underreported. But at the EFCC, we have investigated, documented hundreds of billions of naira lost to fraud in pension industry. However, beyond the money is also the unquantifiable loss of dignity in the retiree who has to grovel and beg and even die in some instances in order to assess his contributions. It is a shame of a nation that those who have contributed their most productive years to us in various capacities have to go through hell in retirement. At the EFCC, we find that a significant chunk of the cases we encounter while investigating public sector corruption is linked to the desperate efforts of the worker to escape the pitiable conditions he sees of today's retirees. Distinguished invited guests, on Sunday, sir, I was in the office and we were interviewing a suspect. It may interest you to know that one of the things that he was telling me is the fact that if we took away all that we have seen, that means he is going to die. And what is it that we have seen, sir? We have seen his investment of over 15 million US dollars and over 4.5 billion naira. And he happens just to be a retired director in the public service. And that is just the fear that he is now thinking. This is not his pension anyway. But then we have to talk and talk and talk, and he has to be begging and begging and begging. But then we have to take everything, sir. Very soon, the government is going to be richer with those funds. Our mandate as the coordinating agency of the enforcement of all economic and financial crime laws in Nigeria has made the EFCC very conversant with the rot in the pension system. Our investigative activities in the subsector, especially in respect of police pension office and pension office of the head of service, as well as the military pension, among others, expose us to a mind-boggling range of fraudulent practices that cut across all players in the industry. I do not intend to go this gathering with details of the Commission's findings in these cases, many of which are already being prosecuted in courts across the country. But it suffices to say that the fault lines in the pension system, so exploited by hundreds of players to the detriment of pensioners and economy, invite hard questions about how easily the system is being compromised. We worry about the quality of regulation, the fidelity of pension managers, and the inefficiency of the management of pension assets, which have grave consequences for the national economy. Not to talk about the perception of Nigeria as a country where anything criminal is possible. All of these provided the impetus for the national compensation and concerted action from everyone involved in pension management and regulation. It is our belief that in pooling our resources and expertise together, we can break the cycle of fraud, inefficiency, and mutual distrust in the Nigerian pension system. This, in a nutshell, is the reason we are gathered here this morning, to look at ourselves in the mirror, tell ourselves the truth, and design a pathway into the future we envision for our post-service lives. I have no illusion that the task will be easy, but looking across the hall, I can see the DG and other distinguished invited guests. I'm encouraged by the rare assemblage of some of the best minds in the pension industry and the strong presence of actors in policy-making position in government. Do I worry that this may end up as another talk shop? No, I do not. I'm convinced that rising from this summit, we can no longer be content to live as hostages of past failures. We must accept and faithfully discharge the responsibilities that will be bestowed on us to tackle the identified challenges, however daunting they may be. I'm fully persuaded that the turnaround of the Nigerian pension system requires a broad national consensus, which may start with the maximization of the impact of this summit. At the EFCC, while we are actualizing our preventive mandate of this summit, by this summit, among other programs soon to be rolled out, we will continue to vigorously enforce all laws against fraud in Nigeria. I assure you that we are both willing and able to do all that is necessary today to ensure that tomorrow, when we all cross to the other side of the road in retirement, we will truly live the life of models in the PFA adverts and commercials. Indeed, I'm extremely optimistic that the reforms in the pension administration and fraud prevention that will be the natural outcomes of this summit will be urgently implemented by all stakeholders for the instant and sustained benefit of everyone. I will not conclude, distinguished invited guests, without I wishing very sincerely and thanking the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and my elder brother, Mr. Boss Mustafa, who is carrying the commitment of the government of Mr. President to this summit by personally giving the EFCC all the requisite support to drive these initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you one thing that is incontestable as far as Mr. President is concerned, and it is that when it comes to the fight against economic and financial crimes, there is no deficit of political will to take hard decisions and, of course, difficult ones. I therefore invite participants to grave for sound, not to grave for sound bites that attract monetary applauses, but to reach deep into the treasure troves of knowledge and come up with pragmatic programs and policy recommendations that will ultimately endanger significant improvement in service delivery and eliminate the gaps currently being exploited by the negative actors in the pension system. We owe that to the hapless pensioner out there who we may ourselves become tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me reiterate that the sole objective driving this initiative, our sole dream, is for Nigeria to have a pension system that is transparent, accountable, and responsive to the needs of its most important, most vulnerable stakeholder, the pensioner. Nigeria and Nigerians look forward to the day when retirees in both the public and private sector will take access to their pension entitlements for granted. That is the task that must be accomplished. Failure is not an option. Let us all join hands to eradicate pension fraud in Nigeria. And always remember that when you cross the line, the EFCC will get you anywhere, anytime. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Please, another round of applause for him. Remember, Aita, as he steps onto the podium to deliver his keynote address and also declare this session open. You're welcome, sir. Thank you, sir.
Please take your seat. Let me take this opportunity to once more publicly congratulate Abdurrashid Bawa. I've done that severally in private on his appointment as the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and the great impetus that he has brought to the job, and the resolve and determination he has exhibited with his team in the pursuit of fighting corruption, not condoning corruption, fighting corruption to a standstill. So I congratulate you for the great task. And also to say, Chukol, your statistics is quite sickening. Sickening in the sense that the enormity of the figures that we are dealing with is mind-boggling. We're not talking about hundreds of millions. We're talking about billions touched in people's accounts and pockets. That deservedly means that we have a lot to do in securing the funds of people who have offered services to our nation that is almost about to be filtered by very unscrupulous people whose intention is to ensure that they keep people in penury perpetually. Having made these opening remarks, now let me go to the context of my keynote address. It gives me great pleasure
to be here today to deliver a keynote address at the opening ceremony of this Stakeholders Sensitization Summit on the eradication of pension fraud in Nigeria, organized by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in collaboration with other stakeholders in the pension industry. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is gratifying to note that the EFCC is bringing all the relevant stakeholders together to hold this very important conversation. I am therefore happy to note that the stakeholders here include experts in crime investigation, pension administration, organized labor, civil society groups, mass media practitioners, and most importantly, retirees or pensioners themselves. Indeed, such a synergy between all relevant stakeholders would facilitate thorough examination of the incidences of fraud in the system, as well as their causes and modus operandi, and find ways of addressing them through preventive measures, early detection, investigation, prosecution, and convictions. Certainly, the professionalism and remarkable ability of the EFCC to detect, unravel, and prosecute economic and financial crimes will be brought to bear. In this regard, I am therefore glad to know that the EFCC is extending its specialized coverage to the Nigerian pension industry in order to secure the pension funds and shield the unsuspecting retirees and the contributors from the activities of fraudsters. The theme of this workshop speaks to the scared responsibility of safeguarding the well-being of our senior citizens who have committed the better part of their lives in the service of our dear nation, be it in the public or private sectors. Distinguished guests and participants, this government is very conscious of its responsibility with regards to payment of pensions to eligible retirees in the federal public sector. For this reason, we are resolute in dealing with the criminal act of pension fraud in all its manifestations, especially those resulting from human interface. No matter its form or description we give to it, every pension fraud is heinous, insensitive, and condemnable act. It is unfair for such a crime to be perpetrated against innocent pensioners by robbing them of the legitimate earnings they worked so hard to save for their retirement. More so that they no longer have the vigor, energy, and strength of youthfulness to pursue other income-generating activities. His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari has demonstrated his commitment to pension matters through restoring pension payment to the priority list and clearing the backlog of pension arrears inherited from previous administration and both the contributory and defined benefit pension schemes. Other related efforts of this administration include: 1, prioritize the payment of pension arrears or staff of current and privatize defunct federal agencies. 2, release 54 billion to settle outstanding 33% pension arrears, which dates back to 2010 when the minimum wage was increased to 18,000. 3, placed 3,542 pensioners of the Delta Steel Company liquidated in 2005 on the payroll, ending a 13-year wait for their entitlement. 4, payrolled 9,216 pensioners of NITEL after more than a decade of neglect. And 5, approved the payment of 571.56 million to a total of 174 retired Biafran police officers dismissed by the federal government in 1971 after the Civil War ended, who were pardoned by President Obasanjo in 2000. And 6, approved the release of 24 billion in September 2018 for the settlement of 50% of workers disengaged when the Nigerian Airways was liquidated in 2003-2004. And lastly, 7, recovered cash and non-cash assets totaling 16 billion previously trapped in various insurance companies and underwriters managing the pension funds of federal parastatals and universities through the Pension Transition Arrangement Directorate, PTAR. As you are aware, Nigeria has had its fair share of challenges in areas of pension administration. These challenges necessitated the pension reform of 2004, which introduced a mandatory contributory pension scheme for employees of both the public and private sectors, with few exceptions in the public sector. Since the reform, the CPS has progressed to laudable position, while the exempted personnel currently receive pensions under the defined benefit scheme based on the provisions of extant laws. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no denying the fact that Nigeria has in the recent past witnessed alarming cases of mismanagement and fraud in pension administration, especially as it relates to defined benefit scheme. Several contributors have spoken about that this morning. These cases had been subjects of investigations in many ways and shapes, sometimes aided by technological advancement. Government, in its wisdom to further address the identified challenges in the pension scheme, instituted a review of the 2004 Act, resulting in the enactment of the 2014 Pension Reform Act. Notable provision of the 2014 Pension Reform Act includes sections 92 and 93, which empower the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, to authorize the investigation or examination, inspection, or investigation of an employer related to pension funds or assets. Also resulted in the appointment of recovery agents to carry out the examination of private sector employers to determine their level of compliance. The exercise set out to achieve, amongst others, the recovery of all unremitted pension contributions of employees with penalty, so as to ensure that affected employees do not lose any income that they would have earned from investment of the funds. Secure full compliance of organizations with the PRA 2014, and also reduce complaints of non-remittance of pension contributions by employees, thereby boosting confidence and acceptability of the contributory pension scheme. So far, the recovery agents have made recoveries totaling 19.90 billion, comprising principal contributions of 10.34 billion and penalties of 9.56 billion as at August 2021, and all paid into employees' RSAs. Notwithstanding these policy reforms and precautions against fraudulent practices, there are still quite a number of confounding pension-related criminal acts being witnessed in the industry. It has therefore become imperative to engage in continuous enlightenment of stakeholders in the pension industry, especially the law enforcement agencies, in order to properly understand the relevant laws, procedures, and practices of our pension administration systems, and enhance capacity to hold the horrid incidences of fraudulent activities. I have been assured that the topics to be covered at this workshop were carefully designed to provide a clear and lucid understanding of the pertinent legal and regulatory aspects of the subject matter that would enhance the knowledge and efficiency of the EFCC officers and other relevant stakeholders. I therefore urge the participants to brainstorm and provide veritable ways and means of stemming the incidences of fraud in the pension industry and our society in general. Finally, I want to charge the EFCC chairman not to let this effort end here, but to serve as the beginning of the necessary legislative, administrative, and regulatory and enforcement actions that will strengthen the pension administration system, which we all Nigerians genuinely deserve. The president of NLC had alluded to that. As a worker, you are a potential pensioner because you will soon transit after your very great work on this side. So I would want that at the end of this exercise, whatever resolutions, whatever recommendations come up, let's look at how we can further interrogate the system and ensure that we block all loopholes that give room